Steel rang in the chill morning air, bright as birdsong. Prince Jaehaerys Targaryen's arms ached, but he did not let his blade droop. Sweat stung his eyes and soaked the padded jack beneath his mail, damp curls of black hair clinging stubbornly to his brow. Before him, Ser Barristan Selmy moved with the careful economy of an old lion who had never forgotten how to pounce. Every shift of the Kingsguard's white cloak seemed measured and deliberate, each step a test. "Again," Barristan said as their practice blades slid apart in a small shower of sparks. "Your wrist is strong, your grace, but you still lean with your shoulders. A man can read shoulders." "I thought I was a prince," Jaehaerys panted, circling, boots grinding the yard's packed sand. "Not a grace." "You are both," Barristan replied, "and you will be more if the gods are kind." Jaehaerys did not look up at the balcony, but he felt the weight from there all the same, as tangible as the sword in his hand. His father had the stillness of a man born to be watched. Rhaegar Targaryen stood behind the carved stone rail, pale hair bound back with a strip of black silk, rubies at his throat. He might have been carved from the very rock, were it not for the faint tapping of his fingers on the rail, following a rhythm only he could hear. Jaehaerys feinted left, then twisted into a tight spin, bringing his blade up from below. Barristan turned it aside with insulting ease and rapped him in the ribs with the blunted edge. "Dead," the old knight announced. Again. Princes were not supposed to die in the practice yard, but Jaehaerys had lost count of his deaths here. He sucked in a breath that tasted of dust and iron, forced his tired legs back into stance. Gray eyes. His mother's eyes, everyone said, fixed on the bright circle of Barristan's steel. He imagined a shield on a winter field instead, imagined a wind hard enough to flay the skin from a man's face, carrying the stink of blood and snow and fear. He had never seen true snowfall, only a thin, dirty crust along the King's Road one rare frosted morning. Lyanna spoke of it as if it were an old friend. He moved. The next exchange was better. He kept his shoulders square, let his wrist guide the cuts. Down, across, a high thrust, then a short, vicious jab that would have taken an eye if the swords had been real. Barristan's mouth twitched at the corner, which for him was near enough to a smile. "Better," he allowed as their blades locked. "Now again, but think of your feet. Your father had dancing feet. My father had dreams," Jaehaerys thought, and the thought made his grip tighten. He turned the tightness into a shove that drove Barristan a step back. The sun was climbing now, burning the mist off the yard. There were more watchers beside the king, a handful of gold cloaks at the gate, a pair of serving girls with a stolen crust of bread between them, a squire from Dorne whose name Jaehaerys never remembered. Their murmurs washed around the beats of steel. He would not be less than what they expected. When Barristan finally called a halt, Jaehaerys was breathing like a bellows, his undershirt clinging to his skin, but he was still on his feet. The king's guard stepped back, saluted with his sword, and bowed toward the balcony. "Your Grace," Barristan called. "The prince acquits himself well." Rhaegar did not answer at once. His gaze weighed Jaehaerys, pale eyes unreadable. The boy forced himself not to shift under it. "At his age," the king said at last, "I was half a knight and thought myself whole. He has time yet." Only when Rhaegar turned away, cloak whispering along the stone, did Jaehaerys let his shoulders sag. The tension ran out of him all at once, like a string cut. "You did well," Barristan said, quietly enough for Jaehaerys alone. "He sees more than he says." "I know," Jaehaerys murmured, handing his blade to a waiting squire. "That is what frightens me." He flexed his aching wrist, watching the doorway where his father had vanished. Somewhere above, beyond layers of stone and silk and whispering corridors, the king would be wrapping himself around a harp or a book of prophecies, eyes fixed on some darkness only he seemed to see. Jaehaerys wiped sweat from his brow with the back of his hand and tasted salt. He wondered, not for the first time, whether the prince that was promised could simply arrive late to his own fate. The king's solar smelled of parchment, beeswax, and the faint ghost of harp strings. Even when Rhaegar was not playing, Jaehaerys heard the notes lingering in the air, a melody that never quite resolved. Rhaegar stood with his back to the door when Jaehaerys entered, staring out through the high windows. From this height, King's Landing looked almost orderly. The slums below the hill of Rhaenys reduced to a mottled patchwork around the red stone of the keep, the Blackwater a sheet of hammered silver beyond. Gull cries sliced through the glass. "You favor your mother more every day," Rhaegar said without turning. "In the yard I almost see Brandon in your shoulders." Jaehaerys stiffened. "You did not speak of Lord Brandon Stark when I was a boy. You are no longer a boy." Rhaegar glanced over his shoulder, the corner of his mouth tightening in something that might have been apology. "Come. There is something I would show you." The table before him was buried in scrolls and maps and a cracked leather-bound volume so old its spine had to be cradled. The slender, spidery Associ script on the newer notes belonged to some long-dead scribe. The jagged Valyrian annotations in the margins belonged to Rhaegar himself. Jaehaerys recognized his father's hand, the same that wrote lullabies sharp and impatient here. Rhaegar tapped one page with a long forefinger. The drawing there was crude, more memory than art. Stick-figure men huddled behind low walls of ice, a black sky above them full of falling stars. Beneath, in faded ink, the same phrase repeated in two tongues. Azor Ahai, the prince that was promised. "You have read this before," Rhaegar said. "But you were younger. You read it as you would a tale of Serwyn or the Grey King." "I remember," Jaehaerys said. He remembered Lyanna's eye roll when she had caught him with the book in the Godswood garden. Stories, she had called it. Just stories. The world drowning in darkness. A sword of living fire. A hero reborn in smoke and salt. "It is not a story," Rhaegar said softly. "Or if it is one told too often to be wholly false." He moved, restless, like a man pacing the bars of a cage only he could see. The rubies at his throat caught the light, small bloody suns. "I thought once that it would be me." His gaze drifted to the silver harp resting on the sideboard, then away. "I dreamt of it. I saw myself on a field of blue roses and heard the sound of wings. But dreams are treacherous things. They show you what might be, not what must." Jaehaerys swallowed. He had inherited his father's dreams, or so Lyanna muttered when he woke shivering. A wall of ice, taller than any tower. Shadows moving in a night that did not end. Eyes like pale lamps, burning without warmth. "And now you think it will be me," Jaehaerys said. It was not a question. Rhaegar's eyes snapped to his. Hunger lived there, and pride, and a tiredness so deep it pooled in the fine lines at their corners. "I know it," he said. "The comet that burned the year of your birth. The stars when you first cried. Even your name, though your mother thinks I chose it only for its history. You are the song made flesh, Jaehaerys. The balance of ice and fire. Stark and Targaryen both." A familiar weight settled on Jaehaerys' shoulders, heavier than any hauberk. He looked down at the page, at the faceless hero in the old ink. "This prince," he said slowly, "will he be a king? Or a sword?" Rhaegar's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "A sword is made to be used," Jaehaerys said. "To be dulled, to be broken. A king must live, to mend what war has broken. You speak of the long night as if it will be another rebellion." His mouth twisted. "Will there be anything left of me when you are done forging me for it?" For a heartbeat, something like pain crossed Rhaegar's face. He reached out as if to touch Jaehaerys' shoulder, then checked the gesture, fingers curling back empty. "Do you think I do this for pleasure?" he asked quietly. "I killed my father for this. To stop him burning the city, yes, but also for the chance to ready the realm. I broke oaths and crowns and hearts. I listened to your mother scream in a tower that still stank of smoke, wondering if the gods were punishing me. Do you think I would put all that weight upon you for love of prophecy?" "I don't know," Jaehaerys said honestly. Rhaegar's expression softened but did not quite become kind. "You were born for more than tourneys and songs, my son. I would spare you the burden if I could. But the darkness does not ask what we wish. He turned the page, revealing another illustration. A great wall of ice, little more than a blue smear, with stick figure men in black at its base. "Go," he said. "Eat, rest. We will drill again this afternoon. Barristan says your footwork is improved." Jaehaerys inclined his head, throat tight. At the door he glanced back once. His father stood over the book, head bowed, silver hair falling like a curtain around his face. He looked smaller, without armor, without a sword, just a man alone with his ghosts. Jaehaerys wondered if the prince that was promised ever wished to be anything else. The Godswood of the Red Keep was a poor cousin to the one Lyanna described from Winterfell. The weirwood here was stunted, its red leaves thin and sparse, its pale trunk twisted by centuries of southern sun. Still, there was shade and quiet, and the faint cool smell of earth that the rest of the hill never knew. Lyanna sat at the base of the heart tree, knees drawn up, fingers stained red from crushed berries. She did not curtsy when Jaehaerys approached. She never had. "You're limping," she said by way of greeting. "Did Selmy beat you again?" "He says I lean with my shoulders," Jaehaerys answered, dropping onto the stone bench opposite her. The seat was cool through his breeches. "And my father says my feet are not dancing enough." Lyanna snorted. "Your father thinks everything is a song, even war." "He does not treat it lightly," Jaehaerys said, though there was no real heat in his protest. His gaze drifted up to the weirwood's carved face, its red eyes bleeding old sap. "He killed his own father to stop one." Lyanna's eyes flicked to him. The storm gray in them matched his own, people said, but in hers there was a wildness he did not quite share. Or perhaps he had only learned to hide it better. "Aerys would have burned us all," she said. "That does not make what Rhaegar did any less of a wound. To the realm, to himself." She wiped her stained fingers on her cloak, leaving streaks like war paint. "How did he seem today?" "Haunted," Jaehaerys said, then grimaced. "Always haunted. He spoke of comets and stars and the long night. He called me his song." Lyanna leaned her head back against the tree, eyes closing. "Of course he did." "You don't believe," Jaehaerys said. "The accusation came without his consent." "You never have." "I believe in winter," Lyanna said. "Real winter. The kind that freezes your breath in your beard and turns your fingers black if you take off your gloves too long. I believe in hungry wolves and honest snow. I believe in men with swords who think they can hold all of that at bay if they bleed enough people in the right place." Her eyes opened again. "Prophecy is a clever name men give their fears when they want to make them grand." Jaehaerys thought of his dreams, of the sound of ice cracking not under weight but beneath something pushing up from below. "And still," he said softly, "something is out there." Lyanna was silent for a long moment. Above them, a raven croaked, harsh and amused. "When I was a girl," she said at last, "Benjen and I would sneak beyond Winterfell's walls on frosted nights. The snow made everything sound different, even the wind. Once we saw a shape on a ridge, too tall for a man, too thin for a tree. Your grandfather's men called us liars when we spoke of it and sent us to bed without supper." She shrugged one shoulder. "Maybe it was only a dream. Maybe it wasn't. Whatever waits in the dark won't care what songs we sing about it, or who sits a chair made of swords." Jaehaerys studied her, the sharp line of her jaw, the smear of berry juice at the corner of her mouth. Lyanna Stark had given up her betrothed and her home and her brothers for the prince who saw dragons in smoke. She had watched him kill his own father. She lived now in a red castle of heated stone, with a crown that never quite sat straight on her head. "Do you regret it?" he asked, before he could stop himself. "Choosing him, choosing this." Lyanna's gaze softened. It always did when she looked at him too long. The edges of her anger wore down like stones in a stream. "I regret many things," she said, "but not you." She pushed herself to her feet and crossed the little glade, the Targaryen cloak whispering around her boots. She cupped his face in stained hands, thumbs rough on his cheekbones. "You are not a sword," she said. "You are my son." You are a Stark and a Targaryen, and a boy who rides too fast and eats too much honey cake when he thinks I'm not looking. If the gods mean to use you for their games, let them try. We'll see how they fare." He managed a crooked smile. "You sound as if you mean to fight them yourself." "I do," Lyanna said, "and if they're wise, they'll be afraid." She kissed his brow, leaving a faint stain of berry juice like a third eye. For a moment Jaehaerys could almost imagine the weirwood's carved face was watching them. Not with the indifference of old wood but with something like wary approval. By midday the heat had risen, beating off the pale stone of the red keep in shimmering waves. Jaehaerys traded his mail for a simple dark tunic and a lighter cloak, the three-headed dragon stitched discreetly over his heart. He left his sworn guards at the inner gate, though they protested. "You will not always have a circle of steel about you," he told them. "Best I learn to walk without one." They grudged him 2 gold cloaks all the same, who fell in behind with hands near their sword hilts. The air grew thicker as they descended. The cool of the Godswood gave way to the baked dust smell of courtyards and kitchens, then to the sour reek of the city proper, fish guts and human waste, smoke and salt and the faint sweet tang of spilled wine. He moved through it with practiced ease. The small folk parted, some dipping clumsy bows, others staring openly. Children watched him with eyes too big for their faces. It was not often a prince walked among them without banners to clear the way. "Wolf Prince?" an old woman muttered as he passed, forgetting to lower her voice. Her hair was plaited with a strip of gray cloth, the mark of a widow. "Look at those eyes, like Lord Stark. Better a wolf than a dragon, these days," her companion whispered back, earning a sharp elbow. Jaehaerys pretended not to hear. He had heard worse. Bastard king, snowborn, oathbreaker's whelp. Names slid off like rain unless he let them soak in. A small boy darted from an alley, thin as a reed in a ragged tunic. He skidded to a halt at Jaehaerys' feet, eyes huge, staring not at his face but at the dragon on his chest. "Is it true?" the boy blurted. "That you've got dragon blood?" "Tom," one of the gold cloaks barked. "Back, you little wretch." Jaehaerys lifted a hand. "It's all right." He crouched so he was closer to the boy's height. Up close he could see the grime on the child's cheeks. The way one shoe was more whole than leather. "What's your name?" he asked. "Luca," the boy said, swallowing. "Mida says the last dragons died when he was little, but my ma says sometimes dragon blood can wake up in a man and make him do mighty things." Jaehaerys thought of his father standing over a mad king with a bloody sword, of the skulls beneath the red keep, great black caverns that had once been alive. "Your mother is wiser than most maesters," he said. "As for me, I don't know if there's any dragon in me yet." He reached for his belt and found, as he had half expected, that he carried no coin. He had left his purse behind without thinking. Instead he unclasped the small brooch at his throat. A silver wolf's head, the gift Uncle Eddard had brought on his last visit south. He pressed it into Luca's grubby palm. "Here," Jaehaerys said, "a wolf, until the dragons wake." Luca's mouth fell open. "My prince, take it," Jaehaerys said, "and try not to let any gold cloak win it off you at dice." The boy grinned, sudden and fierce. "I won't," he said, and darted away, clutching the brooch to his chest as if it were a heart. The old widow watched him go, then fixed Jaehaerys with a measuring look. "Maybe you're not your grandfather after all," she said. "I should hope not," Jaehaerys answered lightly, though the words twisted something low in his chest. As he turned back toward the hill, the city's noise rose around him. Hawkers' cries, wagon wheels clattering, the cacophony of 10,000 separate lives. Out on the bay a ship's bell rang. Jaehaerys glanced east, where Dragonstone lay invisible beyond the horizon. If the dragons are to wake, he thought, they'll wake there, in fire and salt as the book says. And if they do, every soul in this city will live or die by what we choose for them. The library was cool and dim after the glare of the streets. Candles guttered in their iron brackets, their smoke drawing faint patterns on the air. Maester Pycelle dozed upright in his chair like an old tree grown around its own weight, his chain a tangled snake around his scrawny neck. Jaehaerys let him sleep. Pycelle's droning lessons had never held much charm. What Jaehaerys wanted today was not in the Maester's memory but between the pages of a book. He found it where he always did, half buried beneath newer histories. The Jade Compendium, bound in cracked leather that smelled of dust and some unfamiliar spice. He eased it open with care, fingers tracing the old ink and looping Essosi script. On the inside cover, in thinner Westerosi letters, someone long dead had written, translated into the common tongue by Septon Barth. Barth's hand was sure. The margins were crowded with questions and doubts, attempts to reconcile wild tales with the measured mind of a man who had never seen half the things he described. Rhaegar loved this book. Jaehaerys turned to the section he sought. There, painted in fading pigments, was the wall. A pale blue line cutting across the land beneath a sky the artist had made almost entirely black. Tiny figures in black cloaks stood at its base. Opposite them, in the darkness beyond, loomed taller shapes. Smears of white with eyes the painter had rendered as blank circles. The others, Barth named them. White Walkers, the wildlings called them. Not creatures of the Seven nor of the Red God, but something older. He read. Barth's words spoke of the first long night, of years without dawn, of dead men walking with blue fire in their eyes, of a last hero who went north with 12 companions and returned alone. In the margin beside that line, Rhaegar's Valyrian script cut across Barth's. Not alone. With a sword, Jaehaerys shut his eyes. He saw himself atop the wall from his dreams, looking north, his breath a plume of white in air so cold it cut his lungs. He felt the weight of a sword in his hand, heavier than any steel he had lifted, hot enough to burn through his gloves. In the dream, the flames had not hurt him. When he opened his eyes, the room seemed smaller. The shelves leaned in. The candle's flame on the table guttered as if in a breath. "Your Grace," a papery voice croaked. Maester Pycelle had roused. He peered at Jaehaerys over the slope of his nose, watery eyes unexpectedly sharp. "Again you trouble yourself with old tales." "They may not be tales," Jaehaerys said. "Everything men fear, they make into tales," Pycelle sniffed. "And everything they desire. If your royal father were right, we should be seeing snowfall in midsummer and white demons dancing beyond Eastwatch by now. Are we?" "No," Jaehaerys admitted. "Then perhaps the worst winter is the sort that freezes men's hearts against one another." Pycelle's lips twitched, amused by his own cleverness. "I assure you, Your Grace, the realm has more pressing concerns than snowflakes." Jaehaerys thought of Luca with the wolf's head brooch, of the widow's rough judgment, of lords who whispered about succession when they thought the walls could not hear. "Perhaps it does," he said. "For now." As he closed the book, his fingers brushed the smooth, scaled curve of an object half hidden among scattered scrolls. A dragon egg, small enough to cradle in both palms, its shell a dark glossy red mottled with black. One of 3. Rhaegar kept them here sometimes, as if proximity to old words might coax them to quicken. Jaehaerys lifted the egg, feeling its surprising weight. "Dragons won't hatch from staring," Pycelle said, though unease lurked behind his certainty. "The last egg to show any sign at all was in my grandfather's day. It burst like an overripe melon and stank worse than a plague ship." Jaehaerys held the egg anyway. It was not warm, not truly, but in his imagination he felt a pulse deep within, a buried heartbeat echoing his own. If you wake, he thought, we'll have no time at all before the storm breaks. By the time the sun slid behind the hills, the great hall glowed with lamplight. The high windows had gone black, reflecting the blaze of torches and the shimmer of gold work on the nobles' sleeves. The Iron Throne loomed at the far end like a jagged shadow, but Rhaegar rarely sat it for feasts. He held court from a lower seat of carved oak at its base, his crown a simple band of dull gold on his brow. Elia Martell sat to his right, her slender hands resting lightly on the chair's arms. The years had not been kind to her body. but they had turned her beauty into something finer, like a blade honed thin. Rhaenys had her smile. On his left sat Lyanna, her posture slightly wrong for a queen. She slouched when she forgot herself. Tonight she remembered, holding her back straight, dark hair braided and threaded with silver and garnet. Only the restless drumming of her fingers against the table betrayed her. Jaehaerys sat below them at the high table, between Aegon and Rhaenys. Aegon had Elia's coloring and Rhaegar's bones. Every inch the prince the realm had once expected to follow his father. He moved with the ease of someone long used to being watched. Rhaenys, dark and quick, toyed with the hilt of a slender dagger at her hip when she thought no one was looking, her attention wandering from the food to the Myrish acrobats cartwheeling between the tables. "And if Lord Tarly drills his men any harder," Aegon was saying, "he'll wear the reach down to pebbles. Lord Mace will have to start sowing grain on them to keep up appearances." Rhaenys snorted. "You only say that because Tarly bested you at the butts." "He cheated," Aegon protested. "He has the eye of a hawk. It's unnatural." "Perhaps he prayed," Jaehaerys said, half listening as a servant refilled his cup. The wine was Dornish, dark and strong. "The seven favor those who work," Septon Maribald says. Septon Maribald also says the stranger walks among us in every crowd, Rhaenys said. "Which makes me think he's simply afraid of people." Aegon laughed, but his hand tightened almost imperceptibly on his goblet when their father's voice rose above the din. "And I tell you, Lord Hoster, the Trident's fields will recover." Rhaegar was saying to Hoster Tully, "Peace is a tree that grows slowly after it's been cut. If the weather holds, your grace will do better yet," Lord Hoster replied, his trout gleaming on his doublet. "The river runs kinder when it isn't clogged with corpses." An ugly silence rippled down the table at that. "Old wounds, Aerys, Robert, ash on the wind." For a heartbeat Jaehaerys could taste it under the spice and smoke. Lyanna broke it. "Then let's hope the river never needs to learn that taste again," she said, lifting her cup. "I prefer my water clear." Elia's mouth curved. "As do we all, sweet sister." The title hung between them like delicate glass. Some days the two queens moved around each other with wary grace, a balance forged of necessity and time. Other days their shared husband sat between ice and stone. Tonight they managed. Elia turned the talk toward news from Dorne. Lyanna answered with a wry complaint about southern heat. Lords leaned in, relieved to be steered back to safer waters. "Father spoke with you this morning?" Aegon asked Jaehaerys in a low voice. "He did," Jaehaerys said. "Prophecy?" Rhaenys asked, equally soft, leaning so close her curls brushed his sleeve. "What else?" Jaehaerys replied dryly. Aegon's gaze slid to the dragon skull mounted on the far wall, empty sockets black. "He used to speak of it to me," he said. "Before you were born. I was meant to be the prince once." "You still may be," Jaehaerys said. Aegon's smile was brief and sharp. "No, I'm something else now. A bridge, perhaps. Or a shield. Or a stone in someone's shoe." Rhaenys kicked him lightly under the table. "You're a fool. And a prince. And if father's dreams were worth half what he thinks, we'd have dragons already and wouldn't need to fret over whose head wears which bit of gold." "We may yet have dragons," Jaehaerys said, thinking of the egg's weight in his hands. Aegon studied him. "And if we do," he murmured, "will they answer to you? Or to him?" Jaehaerys had no answer to that. On the dais Rhaegar rose, the hall quieted by degrees. He never shouted for silence. He did not need to. Men leaned forward to catch his words. "My lords, my ladies," he said, voice carrying clear. "The realm remembers war more keenly than peace. You all bear scars on your bodies, in your houses, in your hearts. So do I." He paused. The hall listened. "We have known 16 years of peace," he went on. "It has not been easy, nor perfect. Old wounds fester, old grievances flare, but we have not burned. We have not bled. I mean to keep it so." Jaehaerys felt the hall lean in again, wary. "Soon," Rhaegar said. I will call a great council, not to unseat any man, but to bind us more strongly, to look north as well as south. There are storms that do not rise from the narrow sea. His gaze found Jaehaerys then, and for a moment it felt as though every eye followed it. For tonight, however, Rhaegar said, letting a sliver of warmth into his tone, we eat, we drink. We remember that we are living men and women, not shadows waiting for a winter that may never come. Laughter rippled, the tension eased, but Jaehaerys felt it all the same, that invisible finger pointing. You. Later, in Aegon's rooms, the roar of the hall was only a muffled memory. The fire in the grate had burned down to red coals. Between them, the Cyvasse board was a battlefield of carved dragons, elephants, mountains, and kings. You always overprotect your dragon, Aegon said, nudging a spearman forward. You always sacrifice yours too quickly, Jaehaerys replied, sliding a trebuchet into place. Perhaps between us we make one sensible prince. Aegon snorted. Between us we make one man paralyzed by indecision. He lifted his dragon piece, a slender thing carved of black ironwood. Its wings spread. He rolled it in his palm, considering. Firelight picked out the fine details, the ridged spine, the tiny teeth. If father calls this council, Aegon said, do you think he means to name you heir before all the realm? Jaehaerys considered lying and discarded it. Yes, he said. Aegon set the dragon down, away from danger, shielding a flank of carved mountains. He told you so? Not in so many words, Jaehaerys said. He never speaks plainly of thrones, only of swords and songs and storms. But he looks at me as if he sees an answer to a question he's been asking his whole life. And mother. Aegon's dark blue eyes were unreadable. Elia is too clever to ask the question aloud, Jaehaerys said, or to answer it. Aegon moved a footman, then looked up sharply. And what do you see when you look at yourself? Jaehaerys hesitated. The fire popped, sending up a spray of sparks. I see a boy who has never seen snow but dreams of dying in it, he said. I see a prince born at the end of a war his father started and ended in the same stroke. I see a sword being sharpened without being asked whether it wishes to be. Aegon studied him, then laughed softly, not unkindly. Trust you to cast yourself as a tragedy. You asked. I did. Aegon's fingers brushed his dragon again. When I look at you, little brother, I see something else as well. I see a shield. A shield. Jaehaerys frowned. Between me and father, Aegon said with startling bluntness. Between his dreams and Dorne's patience. Between his guilt and the rest of us. Jaehaerys said nothing. Aegon had always been like this in private. Easy as a summer afternoon in public, and in private as sharp as a veil blade. Do you resent me? Jaehaerys asked eventually. For taking what was meant to be mine? Aegon shrugged. Sometimes, on days when old men in council look at you as if you were a comet sent by the gods. On others, when father stares at the sea and mutters of shadows, I am glad he has someone else to bear the brunt of it. He is not mad, Jaehaerys said. Not yet, Aegon agreed. Not as his father was. But dreams can hollow a man, little brother. You've seen it. He moved his king piece, carved as a knight in a circlet, into what looked like safety. Jaehaerys smiled thinly and edged his trebuchet forward one square. Cyvasse, he said. Aegon stared at the board, then laughed, shaking his head. You are a cruel opponent, he said. Perhaps the realm is better off with you as a sword. Jaehaerys thought of Luca, of Lyanna's berry-stained fingers, of the old widow's sharp gaze. Perhaps it needs a shield more. The Hall of Dragon Skulls always smelled of old smoke and older bones. Jaehaerys could never say whether that scent was real or only something his mind supplied to match the gloom. Torches hissed and spat along the walls, their flames throwing long, wavering shadows across the vaulted ceiling. Valyrian's skull dominated the far end of the hall, a mountain of blackened bone. The eye sockets were big enough for a man to stand in. Jaehaerys had done so once, when he was small, before Lyanna had dragged him down and cuffed him hard enough to make his ears ring. Now he only looked. "They say his fire could melt stone," Rhaegar said quietly beside him. "That Aegon's enemies would surrender at the sight of his shadow, rather than face him." "Did they?" Jaehaerys asked. "Some did," Rhaegar said. "Others did not, and burned for their pride." His voice held no judgment, only fact worn smooth by repetition. "Do you wish we still had them?" Jaehaerys asked. "Dragons." Rhaegar was silent a long moment. Their footsteps had echoed as they came down. But now there was only the crackle of torches and the faint whisper of air moving through old stone. "I wish we had never needed them," Rhaegar said at last. "But wishing does not change that we will need them again." He stepped closer to the skull, hand hovering just shy of touching. Firelight painted the planes of his face in gold and shadow, making his eyes seem deeper. "When I was a boy," he went on, "my father brought me down here once. He stood where you stand now and told me these were the truest kings Westeros had ever known. Power without question, fear without rival." Jaehaerys swallowed. "Did it frighten you?" "It bored me," Rhaegar said, surprising him. "I had read the histories. I knew how many lives were pinned to these bones. It was only when I began to dream of a darkness that dragonfire could not burn away that I grew afraid." He looked at Jaehaerys, and there was no king in his gaze now, no prophet. Only a man who had borne too much for too long. "I do not want you to be another skull in a hall," Rhaegar said. "I would have you live to see your hair go gray, hold your own grandchildren. Then stop sharpening me," Jaehaerys said. Before he could swallow the words, they hung between them, harsh and hot. "Stop calling me your song, your sword, your prince. Let me be a boy for a year." "A boy?" Rhaegar's mouth twisted. "My boyhood ended when I was forced to watch my father take my mother to bed." "I am not your father," Jaehaerys said. "No," Rhaegar agreed. "You are my son, and I would spare you all of it if I could." For a heartbeat, Jaehaerys thought he would reach out, draw him into an embrace like the ones he only half remembered from childhood. Instead, Rhaegar turned away, the moment closing like a book. "Go to your chambers," he said. "Sleep. You have done enough for one day." Jaehaerys looked up at Balerian's empty eyes. In the wavering torchlight, he fancied he saw them gleam, not with fire, but with something cold and patient. Another skull in another hall. Another prince whose story someone else had written. He turned and followed his father back up toward the light, the ghost of the dragon's gaze heavy between his shoulder blades. The long corridors of the Red Keep carried sound almost as well as they carried footsteps. A word spoken in one room could find its way, thin and altered, to a listening ear 3 turns away. Jaehaerys knew that. He had used it himself as a child, mapping the castle with his feet and his ears. Yet habit drew him along the quiet ways all the same. The servants' stairs, the overlooked galleries, the stretches of wall where tapestries muffled his tread. He was passing one of the smaller solars when he heard his father's voice, low and strained. "Cannot keep asking this of them, Rhaegar." "Elia." Jaehaerys paused before he thought to. The door was opened by a hand's breadth, a slash of warm light across the floor. He knew he should move on. He stood still. "The realm does not care what we ask of it," Rhaegar replied. Though he kept his voice soft, Jaehaerys heard the frayed edge beneath. "It cares what we do." "Elia." "No." Elia seldom raised her voice. When she did, it cut clean. "You speak of councils and prophecies, of binding Dorne and the North and the Trident with one hand while you fan old fears with the other. Half your lords still whisper that you murdered your father for my sake, or for Lyanna's. The other half think you did it for dragons that no longer exist. Now you would give them something new to fear, a northern queen and her child set over mine." Jaehaerys' breath caught. "When did I speak of naming him over Aegon?" Rhaegar asked very softly. "You didn't have to," Elia said. Her laugh was brittle. "I have shared your bed, your crown, and your dreams, Rhaegar. I know their shapes before you put them into words. You look at Jaehaerys as you once looked at the stars, and at our son as if he were a promise half fulfilled. That is not true, Rhaegar said. Isn't it? Jaehaerys could see them only as shifting shadows through the narrow gap, but he could picture their faces well enough. Elia's chin tilted, Rhaegar's mouth drawn tight. You and I made Aegon for this, Elia said. Do you remember? In that ruined tower at Summerhall, with the stones still smelling of smoke and all your dead dragons in your mind. You told me he would be the prince that was promised. You swore it. Now you tell Lyanna the same, or you let her tell herself, and between the two of you the realm is left to guess which prophecy you mean to keep. I was wrong, Rhaegar said. The words sounded as though they hurt. About myself. About one prince. The song was never meant for a single voice. It needs harmony, balance, fire and ice. And so you took her, Elia said. You took Lyanna and the North and her womb as well. Did you think I would not know? Did you think I would quietly let my children become footnotes in your ballad? I did not take her, Rhaegar said sharply. She chose. Do not speak to me of choice. Elia's voice shook now, with fury or something close to grief. You speak of the prince that was promised, but you never ask what he is promised to do. To save us? Or to break us so completely there is nothing left to fear? Jaehaerys' hand had gone numb on the doorframe. You think I wanted this? Rhaegar asked. You think I want to set one child above another? You think I do not lie awake hearing Aerys laugh, knowing I am the only man in the realm who has killed a king and yet cannot kill a dream? A sound followed that might have been a sob or a strangled laugh. I think, Elia said, quieter now, that you have already chosen. You may not have spoken it, but you have. You chose the day you carried that Stark girl into this castle and crowned her with blue roses in front of all your father's enemies. Jaehaerys stepped back, careful as if leaving a room full of sleeping snakes. His heart hammered. He did not hear the rest. The corridor seemed narrower as he walked away, the shadows thicker. He had always known, in the abstract, that his birth had cost things. Promises, friendships, a man named Robert whom Lyanna never spoke of. Tonight he knew it as something sharper, a cut made in living flesh that had never quite healed. That night, sleep came late. Jaehaerys sat on the window seat in his shirt sleeves, knees drawn up, back against the cool stone. King's Landing sprawled below, a dark sea pricked with fire. The moon hung low over the Blackwater, painting the bay in broken silver. Somewhere a dog barked, thin and lonely. From here he could see the city walls, the faint glimmer of the great September's crystals, the black lump of the dragon pit on its hill. The wind carried snatches of sound. A distant song from some riverside tavern, the creak of rigging in the harbor, the clatter of a late cart on cobbles. It all felt fragile, a thin layer of warmth laid over something vast and cold. He pressed his forehead to the glass, breath misting it. For a heartbeat, in that fog, he saw not the city but a white expanse reaching to the horizon. The wall, from his dreams, stretching across the world like a scar. Beyond it, shapes moved in the dark. He blinked and the vision was gone. Behind him, the hearth fire had burned low, a bed of embers. His bed waited, coverlet smooth and untouched. On the table near it lay a carved wolf, its snout worn smooth where he had held it as a child, and a small dragon wrought in silver, wings outstretched, the gifts of two worlds side by side. He thought of his father, somewhere above or below, perhaps still pacing before a fire or bending over his books. Of Lyanna, asleep or feigning sleep, fists clenched beneath the furs. Of Elia, frail body containing a heart like tempered steel. Of Aegon and Rhaenys, tangled in sibling quarrel and love. He thought of Luca, clutching a wolf's head brooch in a tangle of alley shadows. Of the widow who had looked at him and seen not a dragon, but the absence of Aerys. You are not a sword, Lyanna had said. You are my song, Rhaegar had said. Jaehaerys closed his eyes. In the dark behind them, the wall rose again, stark and immense. He saw himself standing upon it, cloak whipping in a wind that smelled of old ice and older things. Far below, Candles burned in a castle clinging to the southern face, small and defiant. In the distance something moved. Not men, not wolves. A long line of white advancing over the snow, silent and relentless. His hand reached for a sword, and in the dream his fingers closed on a hilt that burned. He drew it, and pale fire hissed along the blade, hungry and cold. The heat licked his face without consuming him. "Prince?" a voice whispered, from everywhere and nowhere. "Song, sword." He woke with a start, breath ragged, heart hammering against his ribs. The chamber was dark save for the embers in the hearth. His hand was clenched so tightly in the coverlet that his knuckles ached. Slowly he rose, crossed to the window again. The city lay unchanged. No snow, no wall, only stone and water and sleeping men. He rested his palms on the sill and looked north, beyond the city, beyond the black smear of the Kingswood, past the unseen hook of the neck and the distant, invisible hills of the north. "Whatever you are," he whispered into the night, to the dream, to the wall, to whatever waited beyond it. "I will not be your skull in a hall. I'll not be your song written by someone else's hand." The wind carried his words away. Far to the north, beyond any map he had read, clouds gathered over an ancient line of ice. But here, for now, the night remained soft, and the prince named for kings and songs kept watch over a sleeping city. Feeling the weight of a future he could not yet name pressed down like the promise of snow. The queen's solar overlooked the city like a judging eye. From its balcony, the roofs of King's Landing jostled together in uneven waves, red tile and gray slate and thatch all crammed into one heaving beast. The morning mist was burning away, letting the scent of the bay creep in beneath the perfume of orange blossom and clove. Elia Martell sat very straight in a high-backed chair carved with dragons and sunbursts. Sunlight caught the hollows beneath her cheekbones, turning her fragility into something almost ethereal. Her hands lay perfectly folded in her lap when they were not lifting a cup. Lyanna Stark Targaryen preferred the balcony rail. She leaned on it as if it were the low wall of some northern yard rather than a place where queens were meant to pose. The Targaryen cloak about her shoulders dulled the plain brown of the riding leathers beneath, but could not hide them. Between them, on a low table of polished cedar, the tea steamed in a silver pot. Neither woman reached for it. "It was a fine speech," Elia said at last, breaking the silence. Her voice held the softness of silk and the strength of the thread under it. "Last night in the hall." Lyanna looked back over her shoulder. "Was it?" "You know it was," Elia said. "No one speaks against peace with a full cup and a full plate before them." Our lordly guests nodded so fiercely I feared their heads would topple into their soup. Lyanna allowed herself a crooked smile. "You mock him." "I mock everyone," Elia replied. "Myself most of all." The fine gray beginning at her temples was visible in this light, as delicate as spider silk. Lyanna noticed it and felt a strange twist that was not pity. They were of an age more or less, yet Elia seemed older, worn by heat and duty. Lyanna still woke some mornings expecting to smell Winterfell's cold stone. "You think the council unwise?" Lyanna asked. "I think your husband has never met a vision he did not wish to turn into a gathering," Elia said. "He will call the north and the vale and every other corner that half remembers the fire we danced in last time. He will ask them ever so gently to set aside their fears, and hearts will be soothed." "For a time," Lyanna said. Elia set down her cup with surgical precision. "Until someone whispers that he means to set one sun above another." Lyanna's jaw tightened. "Is that what they whisper in Dorne?" "They whisper many things in Dorne," Elia said. "The wind there is full of knives." "And you?" Lyanna asked. "What do you whisper?" Elia's gaze moved to the balcony, to the city beyond. "I whisper to my children that they are safe, that their father loves them, that their brother loves them." "Jaehaerys would jump from this balcony before harming Rhaenys or Aegon," Lyanna said. "You know that." "I know what I see," Elia replied. "I see Aegon driving himself twice as hard at every lesson because he knows his father's eye lies elsewhere. I see Rhaenys making her jests sharper than any blade, so that when they cut her she can pretend she wielded them first. I see Jaehaerys flinch when Rhaegar speaks of prophecy and pretend he does not. They regarded one another across the little table. Somewhere beyond the door, a girl laughed, then stifled the sound. "I didn't steal your crown," Lyanna said. "I didn't ride to Dorne with an army at my back. I did not put a sword between you and him. I came because he said if he did not take me, thousands would burn. I stayed because the first thing I saw him do was kill a madman to save a city." Elia's smile was thin and humorless. "And I stayed because I did not wish those thousands to die either. So here we are." The words settled like a third presence in the room. "Here we are. You have the right to hate me," Lyanna said. "I have the luxury," Elia corrected softly. "There is a difference." For a heartbeat it seemed that might be the end. Two women in a high room divided by more than the table between them. Then Elia sighed, and some stiffness left her shoulders. "We share this, at least," she said. "We both love our children more than we love his prophecies." Lyanna's answering smile was small, but real. "On that," she said, "we agree." Outside, the city glittered in the growing light. Somewhere beneath the tiled roofs, a boy with a silver wolf in his fist might be turning it over, wondering at his luck. Above, in some other chamber, the man they shared would be pacing and thinking of Snow. The small council chamber smelled faintly of wax and old wine. The same worries had been spilled onto the same table since long before Jaehaerys was born, only the sigils on the men's breasts changing as the years ground on. Coin, ships, food, enemies. Rhaegar sat at the head of the oval table, one hand resting lightly on a rolled map, the other on the chair's arm. His crown looked almost out of place among inkpots and ledgers. Jaehaerys stood behind his father's left shoulder. He had no seat at council yet. Rhaegar said listening was the first lesson of rule. So he listened. "And I say the Dornish levy grows slack," Lord Sunglass insisted, his thin mouth pinched. "They drill in their own fashion, it's true, but a spear is a spear. We struggled to raise their banners swiftly last time. We struggled because we asked them to march against their prince's father," said Varys, tone mild. The master of whisperers folded his hands inside his voluminous sleeves. "I suspect if we called them against outsiders, they might remember haste. Best we have no cause to call them at all," said Peter Baelish, flicking imaginary dust from his green velvet sleeve. His gray-green eyes were bright with amusement. "Wars have a habit of spilling out of their margins, like ink, which is precisely why we must remove the cause," Grand Maester Pycelle said, tugging at his beard. "This talk of councils and prophecies unsettles the realm, your grace. The lords mutter that you mean to alter the succession. A cat need only hear the word dog to vanish under the bed." Rhaegar's gaze flicked briefly to Jaehaerys, then back. "And what would you have me do, Maester?" "Sit in silence until winter falls, for fear that words might wake old ghosts." "A greater fear," Varys murmured, "is that some living men are far less restful than ghosts." A dry chuckle went around the table. They all knew which living man he meant. Robert Baratheon's laughter still echoed in certain stormy corners of the realm. Barristan Selmy, white cloak draped perfectly, cleared his throat. "The watchtowers along the Dornish marches report no unusual musters," he said. "No banners called, no raids. As yet, Prince Doran keeps his word." "Of course Doran keeps his word," Littlefinger said, studying the map. "His whole life is made of keeping words and folding them into pretty patterns. It's the other Dornish we should worry for." "Our concern today is not Dorne," Rhaegar said. "It is the Trident." He moved a small wooden fish to the heart of Westeros. "Lord Hoster speaks fair. He pledges his sons and swords. Yet half his bannermen still drink to the drowned king, and the other half to the man who knocked me from my saddle in that river. Their loyalty lies with peace, not with me." "Is that not enough?" Pycelle asked. "It is," Varys said smoothly, "so long as peace is all that is asked of them." Jaehaerys watched the way Rhaegar's fingers rested on the little trout. Gently, almost fondly. His father had nearly died there. Songs called it a clash of titans. Dragon versus stag in a river turned red. They rarely mentioned that Rhaegar had ridden straight at Robert with a smile on his face, certain of the righteousness of his doom. Harvests in the Riverlands have been thin, Rhaegar said. Not disastrously so, but enough to fray tempers. Banditry grows. The last thing we need is some bright young fool deciding he is the next Robert Baratheon. If the realm believes a crisis of succession looms, it gives such men a banner to gather under. And yet, Varys said delicately, to pretend that crisis does not exist is to pretend you have only 2 children where you have 3. For a heartbeat the chamber tasted of iron. Jaehaerys felt the weight of eyes on his back, heard the words no one spoke. Rhaegar's jaw tightened. I have 3 children, he said, and a realm I will not see torn apart over them. He rose. That was enough. The counselors scrambled to their feet. We will send grain north from the Reach, Rhaegar said, quietly at cost. I will not see another bread riot in King's Landing. Ser Barristan, instruct the City Watch to show themselves more often in the Riverlands. Lord Varys, I expect to learn the names of any man foolish enough to think himself the next Robert before he thinks them himself. As you command, Varys said, bowing. Rhaegar turned his head slightly. Jaehaerys, walk with me. Jaehaerys fell into step beside him as they left the chamber. The door thudded shut behind, swallowing the renewed murmur of voices. You heard them, Rhaegar said without preamble. I did, Jaehaerys said. And they are afraid, Jaehaerys answered. Of war, a prophecy, of me. Rhaegar's mouth twisted. They are afraid of change. Men who have survived one fire flinch at the sight of a candle. Am I the fire? Jaehaerys asked quietly. Rhaegar walked a few paces before replying. You are what stands between the next fire and the dark, he said. They do not know it yet. Some never will. It does not make it less true. The yard rang with steel again before noon. This time it was not Barristan facing Jaehaerys across the sand, but Aegon. His elder brother fought with a different rhythm. Where Barristan was precise and restrained, Aegon was fluid, blending Selmy's schooling with something more exuberant. A Reachman's flourish here, a Dornish spear dancer's feint there. His laughter came as easily as his cuts. You lean, Aegon said, grinning through his panting. Barristan is right. And you show off, Jaehaerys replied, circling. Rhaenys is not impressed. On the low wall, Rhaenys lounged like a cat in the sun, boots dusty, hair only half tamed by its braid. She flicked a walnut shell at them. You're both very pretty with swords, she called. But if you keep your chins that high, the first Stormlander you meet will take them off. You could join us, Aegon said, if you think you can do better. I know I can do better, Rhaenys said. That doesn't mean I see sense in sweating before midday. They laughed, and for a brief, bright moment the yard felt like some other place, some gentler life where 3 royal siblings sparred for nothing but pride. No prophecies weighed their footwork, no armies measured their grip. Above, on the balcony, 2 darker figures watched. Lyanna, arms folded, leaned her hip against the stone. Elia stood very straight, hands light on the rail. From a distance, they might have seemed united. Ha! Aegon said, fainting low. Jaehaerys parried, twisted. A heartbeat later, they were chest to chest, blades crossed. Sweat ran down Jaehaerys' back, his lungs burning. You're improving, Aegon murmured. Soon Ser Barristan will be the one on his arse. I'll carve that on his tomb, Jaehaerys said. Here lies Ser Barristan Selmy, bested by a boy who dreams of snow. Aegon snorted, and in that instant of distraction Jaehaerys hooked his brother's ankle and drove his shoulder forward. They tumbled down in a tangle of limbs and steel. Sand filled Jaehaerys' mouth. Aegon's elbow dug into his ribs. Yield, Jaehaerys said, blunted sword at Aegon's throat. Never, Aegon grunted, then laughed and tapped the blade aside. Very well, yield. Rhaenys applauded lazily. "At last," she said. "We may live to see father's hair actually go white." They scrambled up, trading grins. Jaehaerys glanced toward the balcony. Lyanna gave him a nod that warmed him more than any sun. Elia's expression revealed nothing, but when their eyes met, she dipped her chin the barest fraction. Later, as they drank watered wine beneath a bit of canvas someone had strung up for shade, Rhaenys leaned close. "Mother says Uncle Oberyn writes that the Stormlands are restless," she murmured. "That Lord Robert has taken to shouting father's name when he's drunk, and yours when he's sober." Jaehaerys grimaced. "I would rather he forgot mine entirely." "He won't," Aegon said. He was cleaning his sword with neat, economical strokes. "I met him when I was younger. He smells of ale and regret. Men like that need something to hate." "Let him hate dragons," Rhaenys said. "We're used to it." Jaehaerys thought of the woman in the street who had called him Wolf Prince. "Not everyone hates dragons," he said. "Some hate wolves more." Aegon's eyes flicked to him, thoughtful. "Then we'll show them we are neither," he said. "Or both, in a fashion they haven't yet learned to fear." Elia's chambers were cooler than most in the Red Keep. The maids contrived to coax a breeze through them even on windless days, angling shutters and hanging damp cloths in open windows. Now the slats were half open, letting in a slice of blue sky and the low murmur of the city. She sat by the window with a wooden frame upon her lap, dark head bent. The needle in her fingers flashed in the light like a sliver of steel. With each careful stitch, a sun took shape on the cloth, its curling rays enclosing a slender spear. "Come in, Jaehaerys," she said without looking up. "You hover like a bird on a sill." He stepped over the threshold and shut the door carefully behind him. "I didn't wish to intrude." "You are a prince of the realm," Elia said. "You intrude by existing." He flinched. She sighed and set the embroidery aside. "Sit," she said, nodding at the chair opposite. "If we're to wound each other today, we may as well do it in comfort." He obeyed, folding his long limbs with more stiffness than the chair deserved. Up close, he could see the fine lines at the corners of her eyes. The faint shadows fatigue had etched beneath them. "I heard you," he said, "last night, in the corridor." Her brows arched. "Did you?" "I didn't mean to," Jaehaerys said quickly. "I was passing. I knew I should move on. But I didn't." "A dragon's curiosity," Elia said. "Or a wolf's." "I'm sorry," he said. She waved the apology away. "If we didn't want our children to hear our quarrels, we should have built this castle with thicker walls." The attempt at levity fell between them. He clasped his hands together, knuckles whitening. "I never wished to take anything from Aegon," he said. "Or from Rhaenys. Or from you." "Wishes," Elia said softly, "are the gentlest lies of all." She studied him in silence for a little while. He forced himself not to look away. "You are my husband's son," she said at last. "You are also my children's brother. I have spent years learning how to let those both be true." "So you don't hate me," he said. A small, real smile touched her mouth. "No, Jaehaerys. Hate is a luxury I can't afford. I do, however, reserve the right to be very, very irritated by you." He huffed a breath that might have been a laugh. "That seems just." She reached for the bowl on the table, plucked up an orange, and began to peel it. The sharp citrus scent cut through the room's languor. "You must understand something," she said, white pith sticking to her slim fingers. "When Rhaegar first spoke to me of the prince that was promised, he said many things. He spoke of stars and swords and a song that would save us. Beneath all that, he spoke of fear, his own." Jaehaerys listened. "He is afraid of what he saw at Summerhall," Elia went on. "Afraid of fire he couldn't control. Afraid of shadows that wouldn't burn. He's been trying to balance the scales ever since. When he looks at you, he sees a chance to make all that loss mean something. It's a heavy gaze to bear." "I know," Jaehaerys said. "I suspect you know it better than he does," Elia replied dryly. She divided the orange into neat segments and held one out. Here, eat. It helps with the thinking. The juice burst bright and tart on his tongue. I don't know what he'll do, Elia said. If he names you over Aegon, there will be blood. If he doesn't, there may still be blood when winter comes. The gods play Cyvasse with us and neglect to explain the rules. What would you have me do? Jaehaerys asked. Live, Elia said simply. Don't let his dreams turn you into a shadow. Love my children as your own. Love your mother as you have. Learn to wield a sword well enough that, when the time comes, you may choose whether to swing it. He looked at her. The woman who had been queen before he was born, who had watched her husband bring another wife into her hall and another heir into her house, and had not broken. I can do that, he said. I know, she answered. That's why I don't hate you. The Red Keep had as many unseen eyes as stones. Some belonged to men who owned them. Most did not. From a shadowed alcove overlooking an inner courtyard, two such pairs watched the crossing of paths below. One was soft and heavy-lidded. The other was sharp as a thin blade. Such a pretty brood, Peter Baelish murmured as Aegon and Jaehaerys crossed the courtyard, their heads close in conversation. Dragons and wolves and sons, all in one nest. I wonder what song they'll sing when they flee it. Varys folded his hands in his sleeves. You sound almost sentimental, Lord Baelish. Almost, Peter said. Do not fear, it will pass. They watched the princes vanish into a side passage. A moment later, Rhaenys crossed from another direction, a pair of guards trailing. She paused to help a washerwoman gather fallen linens, laughing as they spoke. There, Peter said. That one I almost like. What a dreadful fate for the poor girl, Varys said mildly. Peter chuckled. You worry too much, my Lord Spider. The king means to bind us all up in his prophecies and call it peace. For now, that serves well enough. And later, Varys asked. Peter's eyes glinted. Later, I expect we'll all be too busy freezing or burning to trouble ourselves over coins and favors. But until then, there are debts to collect. You underestimate the value of coins and favors in deciding who freezes and who burns, Varys said. Peter shrugged. Perhaps. Or perhaps, when the snows come, no one remembers whose purse was heaviest. Someone will, Varys said. Someone always does. Below, Rhaenys handed the last linen back and moved on, humming a Dornish tune under her breath. So, Peter said, eyes following the swing of the guards' cloaks. If the king were to name his heir before the year is out, where would you lay your wager? I do not gamble, Varys said. I invest. And your investment? In the realm, Varys replied. Always. Ah, Peter said. How fortunate the realm is to have such a devoted suitor. The wind shifted, carrying up the distant clang of steel and the bark of a command. Somewhere in the maze below, another step was taken along a path none of them could yet see the end of. Night changed the castle. As noises softened, as corridors hushed. Somewhere below, guards changed watches with muffled clinks of mail. Servants drowsed in their corners. In his solar, Rhaegar Targaryen fed another pinch of resin into the brazier. The flames leapt, bright orange tongues licking at the air. Smoke curled upward, smelling of pine and something bitter from across the sea. Sweat sheened his bare chest despite the hour. On the low table beside him, 3 eggs sat in a metal cradle, their shells dull in the firelight. One was red mottled with black, like dried blood on steel. Another was pale bone with whorls of soft gray. The third was darkest of all, seeming to drink in the light around it. Once, he murmured, to fire and stone and whatever else might hear, you shook the world. He had been a boy when Summerhall burned, but he remembered the heat, the sudden impossible roar. His grandfather's face lit from below, wild and bright, his mother's hand crushing his. He stepped closer to the brazier. The heat licked his skin, harsh and clean. In fire and blood, he said softly, the old words tasting of ash. In salt and smoke, in the shadow of a bleeding star. The comet had come the year Jaehaerys was born, a red wound slashing the sky. Men in the streets had pointed and muttered of omens. Rhaegar had stood on the same balcony he had stood on that morning and watched it burn its slow path across the heavens. He closed his eyes now and let the heat sear his lids. Behind them, visions came unbidden. A wall of ice, a sword of fire, a boy with gray eyes and black hair standing between, cloak snapping in a wind that cut to the bone. "Show me," Rhaegar whispered. "If I am wrong, let me see it now, before I break more lives upon this wheel." The flames danced. Shadows leapt. For a breath he thought he saw shapes in the fire. White forms, tall and thin, eyes like blue embers. They reached toward him, not with hands but with cold. His breath hitched. The room narrowed to heat and color and the iron taste of fear. He staggered back, vision swimming. Then the image shattered. Flame was only flame again. Orange and gold, hungry and ordinary. His heart hammered painfully. On the table, one of the eggs glistened as if with sweat. He touched it with cautious fingers. It was warm, warmer than it had been. "Please," he said. He did not know whether he spoke to the egg, the fire, or the nameless powers that toyed with his nights. "If I must break my children to save them, let it be for something that truly comes." The egg lay still beneath his hand. Somewhere in the sleeping city below, a bell told the hour. The Ravenry Tower was a place of restless wings and restless words. Feathers drifted through the air like black snow, and the smell of droppings battled with the sharp tang of ink and old straw. Maester Tyrone moved among the coops with the calm of long practice, thin hands checking doors, water dishes, feed. When he saw Jaehaerys and Lyanna climb the narrow stair, he straightened with a creak of joints. "Your Grace, my lady," he said, bobbing. "Up early, are we?" "The north is always awake before the south," Lyanna said. She wore a plain dark cloak over her gown, the hood pushed back. In this light, the streaks of silver in her hair were almost invisible. "We've a message to send." Tyrone nodded. "The bird is ready. Your brother's birds always are." He led them to a narrow window where the wind slipped in with a keener bite. A raven waited there, larger than most, its eyes bright and watchful. It ruffled its feathers as they approached. Lyanna drew a small roll of parchment from within her cloak, turning it once in her fingers before handing it over. Jaehaerys glimpsed the broken seal of Stark on the twin still in her hand. "Ned writes that this winter's winds feel stranger," she said. "He says the cold has a taste, and the men of the Watch send more stories than they used to." "Stories?" Jaehaerys asked. "Lights in the forest at night," Lyanna said. "Tracks they can't match to any beast they know. Villages half abandoned with no sign of struggle. Nothing you can lay before a council and say, 'Here, proof.' Enough to set old bones aching." Jaehaerys thought of his dream. He believes in keeping his eyes open when others close theirs," Lyanna said. "As do I." Maester Tyrone tied the message to the raven's leg with gentle fingers. The bird pecked his sleeve once, then settled. "Winterfell," Tyrone told it. "Find Lord Stark." He tossed the raven into the air. It beat its wings, caught the wind, and shot away, a dark arrow heading north. Jaehaerys watched until it was only a fleck against the paling sky. The horizon was a smear of pink and gold above the city's jagged outline. Beyond that, unseen, the land rolled away toward forests and hills and, at last, the frozen line of the wall. "Ned will come," Lyanna said quietly. "Your father has asked it, and my brother has never been one to refuse a hard road." "You think father means to show him the eggs?" Jaehaerys said. Lyanna huffed. "Your father means to show him everything. The eggs, his dreams. You, me, you're his answer," Lyanna said, "to questions Ned hasn't yet asked." Her hand brushed his arm, brief and grounding. "You like my brother," she added. "You'll be glad of him." "I remember him only as a shadow," Jaehaerys said. "A tall man who smelled of snow and leather, who lifted me once as if I weighed nothing." Lyanna's mouth softened. "He still smells of snow and leather," "You've grown heavier." The wind tugged at their cloaks. The ravens muttered and shifted. Somewhere far below, the castle was waking. Bells in the kitchens, grooms shouting in the stables. "Ned is coming?" Lyanna murmured, more to herself than to him. "The wolf is coming to the dragon's den. May the gods grant I haven't lost him forever." By midday, the signs of a northern guest were everywhere. In the main courtyard, servants scrambled up ladders to hang fresh banners in the briskening wind. The three-headed dragon of Targaryen curled and snapped, red on black bright against the pale stone. Beside it, the gray dire wolf of Stark ran across a field of white, teeth bared, fur seeming to ruffle with each gust. Jaehaerys stood beneath an arch, watching as a boy wrestled with a tangle of cords. The lad swore under his breath when one wrapped his ankle. "Careful," Jaehaerys called. "If you fall and break your neck, my mother will blame me. She's convinced every mishap in this castle is somehow my doing." The boy looked down, went pale when he realized who was speaking, and managed a strangled half-bow on the ladder. "Sorry, Your Grace," he stammered. "Just don't drop the wolf," Jaehaerys said, smiling. "It offends easily." The boy laughed then, despite himself, and the knot came free. The banner unfurled fully, the direwolf's head snapping into place beside the dragon's. For a moment, in the shifting cloth, they looked less like enemies than beasts poised shoulder to shoulder. A line of gold cloaks marched across the far side of the yard, their cloaks bright in the sun. Beyond the walls, the roar of the city ebbed and flowed. "You look as if you've seen a ghost," Rhaenys said, appearing at his elbow. She wore a light blue gown cinched with a thin silver belt, her hair braided back from her face. "Only a wolf," Jaehaerys said. "Same thing," she replied. "Did you ever meet Lord Stark?" he asked. "Once," Rhaenys said. "I was very small. He gave me a carved wooden horse from the north. Rough work, not like the Myrish toys, but it felt more real. Mother says I slept with it under my pillow for a year." "She still has it," Aegon said, joining them. "In a chest with every other treasure she refuses to throw away." "I shall treasure that description," Rhaenys said dryly. The three of them stood together a moment, watching the wind worry the banners. "Do you think he'll like you?" Rhaenys asked Jaehaerys. "I don't know," Jaehaerys said. "I'm not sure I would in his place." "He will," Rhaenys said. "You're irritating, but you're kind. Northerners like that, I think irritation and kindness." Aegon's gaze lingered on the twin sigils. "He'll like you because Mother does," he said. "Lyanna doesn't waste her affections." Jaehaerys thought of her berry-stained thumbs on his cheeks. "No," he agreed. "She doesn't." Above them, thin clouds were gathering, high and pale. No one in King's Landing would have called it a storm. In the north, men might have watched such a sky and thought of omens. Far from the city walls, a different banner rode the wind. The road from the north was long and hard, its stones uneven, its inns few. Eddard Stark had ridden it before, once as a young man with hot grief in his blood and his friend's hand on his shoulder, again in quieter years to bend the knee to a king he had not expected to have. Now he rode it as a man who had seen his share of winters and wars, with ice at his hip and ghosts at his back. The dire wolf on his standard flapped gray against white. Behind him, men of the north rode in a dusty column. Karstark spearmen with black sunbursts on their surcoats, shaggy umber riders wrapped in patchwork furs, a pair of broad-shouldered Manderly men whose fine embroidery did not quite hide the salt stains on their sleeves. They talked little. Northerners rarely sang on the road. Catelyn's blue and red did not fly among them, but he felt her presence all the same. In the tug of his thoughts toward Winterfell's halls, in the weight of the promises he'd left behind. He pictured Robb, all long limbs and earnest eyes, Sansa with her courtesies and dreams, Arya wild as any woods wolf, Bran climbing where he shouldn't, little Rickon clinging to his nurse. He told them he was going south to see a king and a cousin. Cousin. The word still felt strange in his mouth. Lyanna's boy. He had imagined many endings to the tale that began the day his sister rode south with Rhaegar. After the trident and the sack and the smoke, he had imagined a grave with a simple stone, and beneath it bones that would never swing a sword again. He had imagined vengeance, and then laid it aside when vengeance led only to more graves. He had not imagined this. A Targaryen king upon a throne. Ned had once been ready to die to seize Lyanna alive beside him, crowned, with a son who carried Stark blood and dragon blood both. He still did not entirely understand how the realm had bent around that fact without breaking. Sometimes, in the deep hours, he wondered if it had. The air here was warmer than in the north, but a breeze carried the faintest edge of something cooler. Ned lifted his face to it. The sky was a wash of gold and blue, streaked with high, thin cloud. "Snow coming, Lord?" Harwin asked from his right, half teasing. "Not here," Ned said. "Not yet." He patted his horse's neck. The animal snorted, ears flicking. Hooves beat a steady rhythm on the road. King's Landing lay ahead, over hills and rivers and ground that had known blood. Somewhere beyond that, the wall cut its line across the world. "So," Ned murmured to the empty air, "let us see what you've done with your prophecies, Rhaegar." By the time the sun began to sink, painting the sky in strokes of orange and purple, Jaehaerys had found his way to the gatehouse. From the ramparts, the land unrolled before him in gentle hills and fields. The road toward the city wound like a pale ribbon. Far off, barely more than a blur, dust rose where riders moved. "The north comes," a guard beside him said, awed. Jaehaerys glanced at the man. He wore the red and gold of the city, spear in hand, helmet under his arm. His eyes were fixed on the distant smear of movement, as if he could already make out the dire wolf on its standard. "Have you ever seen a wolf, Ser?" Jaehaerys asked. "Not the four-legged kind, your grace," the guard said, grinning. "But I've seen Lord Stark. They say he can freeze a man to his marrow with a look." "He's not so fearsome as that," Jaehaerys said, though there was more hope than certainty in it. The wind tugged at his hair and cloak. Behind him, inside the walls, the Red Keep seethed with preparation. Chambers being readied, kitchens stoked, guards shuffled like Cyvasse pieces. When he shut his eyes, he could feel that weight pressing from behind. When he opened them, he saw another weight approaching ahead. Lyanna's brother. The man who had once ridden against Rhaegar with murder in his heart and justice on his tongue, and had somehow been persuaded to bend, not break. Aegon had laughed earlier, calling Ned Stark a ghost from an old war. Elia had gone quiet, eyes far away. Lyanna had said nothing at all, only tightened her grip on the back of a chair until her knuckles went white. Jaehaerys wondered what Ned Stark would see when he looked at him. A boy with his sister's eyes, raised in the house of the man who had taken her. A prince of the dynasty he had sworn to destroy. A child bound up in choices made by other hands. "Do you think he'll like me?" Jaehaerys had asked Rhaenys. Now, watching the dust rise on the horizon, he found himself asking a different question. "Do I deserve that he should?" The first flicker of a banner became visible, pale cloth snapping in the evening wind. Jaehaerys' heart thudded once, hard, then settled into a quicker rhythm. Somewhere deeper in the castle, Rhaegar would be straightening his crown. Elia would be smoothing her gown, Lyanna pacing like a caged thing. Aegon and Rhaenys would be trading barbs sharp enough to hide their nerves. Jaehaerys stood alone on the rampart, the wind in his hair and the taste of salt and coming night on his tongue, and watched the wolf draw near to the dragon's lair.